Tom Martin, not only good looking, not only handsome, not only smart, but also founder of Converse Digital and also now author of The Invisible Sale. Can't see it. This is terrifying because this sounds like this is a real life grown-up book. This is about sales. This starts off, telling stories about the old days of ACT, with you. I mean, I think you're going to lose people right at the first page going, wait a minute, and then you catch me back up by saying, no, there's some Twitter stuff in here too.
Yeah, I thought I would have everybody at Palm Pilot, but then my wife notified me that was simply going to date my geekism, that I've been a geek that long. So at least the bona fides are right up there in the front.
Yeah.
And then, you get into we do even talk Twitter, Facebook too.
Yeah.
I have it all. It's all
It's
there.
terrifying though, man, because you go right from like, here's this tweet that changed my life, which will take all the hardcore sellers off their pegs. And then you go right from that into, you've got to do data-based selling and, you basically that whole story about how many hours it really took you to land the telecom customer. And it's, there's kind of a punch in the belly for everyone, pretty much every chapter, I think.
Well, that was the goal. I really wanted you've written books, so I wanted every chapter to have at least one takeaway, one idea that somebody goes, oh, let me write that down or let me make a note. And I figured, if you can get 17 good ideas out of a book, that's not a bad 1995.
Tom, I would say that if I had to, categorize you in my perspective, when I see you roaming the halls of this or that event or whatever, what I tend to think is so straightforward and so like right on cue and so has the right message that no one's paying attention because he isn't shouting, he isn't throwing things at the crowd, and he doesn't have green hair. In a way, the Invisible Sale book is like that, isn't it? I mean, you use Adorama for one of your examples a little later on, and it's such a great example because there's such a no-nonsense, not attractive business, and yet they do it. Talk just a little bit about your, so I categorized you like that. Now take it back the other way and say, the people who are going to get the most out of Invisible Sale are the people who follow me because...
I think that people are going to get the most out of it are the ones who want to get shit done. I love your categorization. It's I think very accurate, and probably a good bit why I'm not a household name for a lot of people because I spend my days getting it done and making it actually happen and work as opposed to writing yet another list post that people can retweet. But I think that people are gonna get the most are the people who are looking for a field guide. I feel like a lot of books, especially of late, they're being written as trophies, both for the writer and the reader. So the writer goes, "Oh, look at me, I'm an author," but then people are reading them basically so they can put them up on their bookshelf in their office and go, "Oh yeah, I read that. Check mark, I got that one." But then you talk to them and you're like, but wow, you really didn't read the book, or you didn't really pay attention to it. And so I really wanted this to be a field guide. If you really are looking for how to do it, there are a lot of great books out there, I think, that tell us what we should be doing. But then it's like I keep looking for the chapter that says step by step, here's how I do it. And so that's what I've tried to do, in setting it up in the sections. Section 1 is all about how to sell this into your company. Section 2 is how to build it. Section 3 is how to do all the content, which scares the bejesus out of people. And then Section 4 is, hey, once you got somebody on the line, here's how you close them. Because if you try to use old-fashioned selling techniques, you and I both know that doesn't work.
So I'm in the midst of finishing a book right now that's sort of entrepreneurship for weirdos is my subtitle of choice. It's called The Freaks Shall Inherit the Earth. And what I noticed is your part about closing the deal. I'm trying to go through and explain to people who are weird why they're not getting even the open. But I think I know that I'm a bad closer, and I found that chapter was just loaded with stuff. So the content section, I'll admit that I kind of blew past it. I was like,
Well, I would expect you to.
Right. But you're right though. It'll scare everybody else. It's everybody else's. That's the part they're gonna thumb through the most. But how to blow the invisible close, the online only type of close, etc. I thought some of that material was just so fine. And but my ultimate favorite chapter. I didn't even have a question for that. My ultimate favorite was, creating your painless prospecting platform. I think that it's so stunning, and I bet you've done this a lot in person. You'll talk to somebody, you'll be at one of these brain-picking moments or at a lunch at a conference, and you'll say something about, how you've got to get, this kind of a call to action out of your website or whatever. And then people go, huh. And then you see the little light click on like, whoa, I've been doing this totally wrong. Do you think that like part about the prospecting platform and the home base and everything is kind of one of the gems of this?
Yeah, I think so. I think the piece I've been testing a lot of the content throughout the year, speaking at different events and so forth. And the piece that I find people latch onto that I'm really the most surprised about is the funnel optimized websites, and that the fact that your website, your home base, your blog should be pre-designed as a funneling tool and not just simply here's my best post that everyone likes the most and trying to get the most clicks and comments, but actually always placing that next best piece of information right there in front of somebody so that they can continue their path to the buy. And even amongst people that, kind of do what you and I do and who I think we're farther along, it's like it's an the light bulbs go off, and that really has surprised me. But I'm glad, because I think that's what a lot of people need to do. They need to be thinking about how, you see it all the time. I'm sure I've got this blog, I get all these people reading, I get all these comments and likes, but nobody buys from me.
Right.
Yes, because you're just you're not trying to move someone down. You're not pre-thinking, okay, if they like this, what else do I need to tell them to get them one step down the pipeline so that I can eventually get them on the phone and close a deal with them.
Right. And I mean, that's part of the thing you mentioned in close too, is that not every deal is going to be just closed through a couple of clicks. They're going to have to be human and get on a phone.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know about you, I get very few that are just, straight up closes, maybe some speaking engagements or something like that, because that's pretty easy. But for the consulting work that we do, there's no way I'm getting a close without a face-to-face. But like the last close that we did, it literally was a 1-hour phone call, and then the guy was in New Orleans for Mardi Gras, and we went and had beers, and the following week, boom, I got a contract. And I think about like that vis-a-vis the pain and suffering I used to go through in the RFP-based world in the ad agency business, and it's just, man, it's night and day. Night and day.
No question about that. That was interesting to me, the whole conversation about you leaving the ad agency and all that. And it rears itself up in a couple of interesting places. One is sort of the help-based chapter, helping versus selling, which I live, so I totally dig that. And then just in some other parts coming along, we need to move to a specific word. Chapter 7. And then it just doesn't leave ever again. Propinquity.
And you said it correctly.
Well, I have to say, so I have this theory that I got from way back when. I went to this really great, crappy junior college once. I went to 7 different colleges, and one of them was this little junior college. And they had the classes, what do they call them, satellite classes, at this elementary school. So I was at a desk where my knees were up over my head and whatever. And this teacher, who I loved, this great name, Ken Hadge, who I actually wrote about in one of my books, he said, tell it to me like I'm 6 years old. Never use a word that a 6-year-old can't get. So I have this great vocabulary I never choose to use. And so propinquity, you went there. I'm sure you love, that's like your favorite part of the speech, I think, when that slide comes up.
I tried to title the book Propinquity. And you and I have the same acquisitions editor, so you can ask her. And I politely, multiple times, tried desperately, because I really actually thought it was the absolute, because it really encapsulates, it is the fundamental underlying theory of everything I ever talk about. And they they were like, not a shot in hell. Not happening. I was like, all right, well, I'm at least getting a chapter. And you can have a whole chapter on it. That's fine with us. We don't care. But you're not titling the book Propinquity. But yeah, I love it. To me, I remember when I first found out about it, God, 15 years ago now, and then started really spending more time with the various research that supports it. And I thought, Jiminy Christmas, this is marketing in a word. And no one ever taught it to me in college. And it's basically, that's the quintessential essence of marketing. How often can I bump into you with content or marketing materials that you are going to like, and then, oh geez, if you bump into it a lot, you'll like me more, and then eventually you want to buy from me. And I love it because it's just pure common sense. Even without the science, which there's plenty of.
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. But then when you see the science behind it, it's like, oh, okay, this is actually backed up by people who do social science for a living.
It's really it's interesting that it's chapter 7, and I get why it is. Like, it has to be way down past all the. You have to make all these proof points and really get somebody to really go along with you for a while before you say, "Look, forget everything I just said. Here's what it really is. This is a book about proximity." And if you had an idea that propinquity was about, being there at the right time or being there in the right place, and if you could just keep having these collisions with an opportunity, that's how you're going to get the sale. And by the way, I will tell you purely that is living truth, because when I am out going to millions of conferences, I got tons and tons and tons of work, tons of gigs, and I've slowed that down to like less than once a month, and I've got no work. So propinquity, Tom Martin, that's what I'm lacking.
You are lacking. You need to get out on there, out on that propinquity tour one more time. Because, I used to see you all the time, and now you're like a ghost.
I'm a ghost. Got to get back in the game. You can't play and you can't get points if you're not in the game. The propinquity solution. I could just see, where you really had this thing ready to go, and, I could see that just didn't get put down. So you stuck it in there anyway, because that's what authors do.
I said, that's fine. I'll do it, but it's got to be a chapter. But and it really, where it's in there where it is, because it is, along with the other tenets of a painless prospecting platform, it is the core concept. If people can get their head around it and understand it, I just think it makes everything really easy to understand from that point forward. They go, okay, I got this. I understand where you're going with this. But yeah, I would have loved to have had the title Propinquity, but that just, you've been down this road before. You know how it is to title a book.
Well, and spelling is hard, man. People hate to spell things, so that's one of those ones that's going to kill you.
Yeah.
You've got you go through the next thing, the whole chapter, including developing your propinquity map, seeing that you won't let that go. With the home base and outpost strategy, I know that one, and then the breadcrumbs and stuff. You've really kind of got it nailed, and then you go back to, and now we've got to get to the hard work. We've got to do, you've laid this trap. Now you've got to actually do the calls and stuff like that.
Yep.
If you were to sort of like thumbnail the Tom Martin school of go out and make some money, and let's pretend that the person's not a speaker or anything easy like that. Let's make them, they just launched a new clothing line, and especially accessories like duffel bags and things like that. It's my friend RJ Diaz from Industry Portage, and he sells very pretty duffel bags that would appeal to people who like constructions and things like that.
Oh, wow. So you mean in terms of how he would close the deal if he was face-to-face with someone, or just how he would work them through it?
Yeah, he's made the bags. He's got a website. The website has pictures on it, and he's like, I'm making some sales. I need to get that huge next big bump. What's worked for me so far is partnership things like a fab deal here and whatever the other things like fab are there. I don't know clothing, but he's saying, Tom Martin, what's next for me? What aren't I doing? What rock haven't I looked under to make good marketing happen? What does the invisible sale tell him to do?
Well, I think what the invisible sales tell him to do, and I'm assuming he's not doing a lot of this as it is now, but one of the things I like to talk about is everybody gets caught up on blogging and creating content in their own master platform, be it a blog or a website or whatever, and SEO, and like that's their golden nugget right there, where I'm gonna build great content, helpful, and I'm gonna SEO the heck out of it, and that's gonna be my saving grace. And I just think that that's not gonna work. And for most people, though, you only get 10 slots on Google. After that, it gets pretty dicey. So I think what he would do is focus on being helpful, but I would focus on being helpful in other people's blogs, other people's websites, review sites. Again, it goes to that whole propinquity. Find a bunch of outposts where you can place content that's helpful and brings people back to your content. But, in short, treat everybody's blog like it's yours. And don't get caught up in the fact that every post there isn't going to be yours, and that it's a big step to get back to yours, bigger than obviously if they're already on your blog. But if you treat everyone's blog like it's yours and produce really kick-ass content that you then give them and push back, now he spreads his ability. He creates that opportunity for propinquity in a whole lot more places than he's ever going to get on his own. And then that allows people to be exposed and get that inbound traffic. And then once he gets the inbound traffic, obviously that gives him some better opportunities for sales. And there's probably lots of ways that people could use his duffel, or lots of situations in which they make a lot of sense that I haven't thought about yet. You know. And that, to me, it's all about creating that opportunity to get someone to raise their hand, and then from there, your natural selling capability takes off. And he'd probably want to tilt his towards buyers, at major, retailers and so forth.
Yes, indeedy. You have a great chapter on social selling, and this is probably the last of the chapters I want to talk about very specifically, but one of the things that I like in it is this is the chapter that shakes the person out of their, if it's not in ACT or not in Salesforce, it's not for me. You know what I mean? And you're saying you've got to get out there and kick a little bit back and forth on the road and make something interesting happen. And I think that's probably the challenge that a lot of people have is, first off, they don't really understand how they're going to explain to the boss that they were just tweeting all day and that was trying to make them money. And then second off, I guess they just don't necessarily have an idea of how to slot that right into their typical sales processes. And you're sort of saying, well, but there is.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's the piece I so don't understand from salespeople. I mean, social selling is just networking at scale and using a digital technology, a keyboard or a video conference, instead of an email or a phone call or a face-to-face meeting. And yet, I mean, the pushback you get from group sales and people who are in more the B2B sales world, it's stunning to me. They just, for some reason, they just can't equate these short little touches to, oh, I'm moving this person one step further, or I'm learning something about them. I'm getting an opportunity to get a buying signal back out of them. But I think the other piece too is, and that I like about that chapter, is the whole idea that just because someone's not going to buy from you today or ever doesn't mean you should write them off.
Right.
Some of your best customers are never going to buy from you, but they're going to tell 100 people to buy from you. And I mean, I love that. And to me, social is phenomenal for that. Because I can talk to a whole lot of people that are never like, you're never going to buy anything from me. We do more or less the same thing in the world.
Sure.
But you're fine with letting me come on your podcast and sharing your very large network of people with me to say, hey, here's something this guy put out. I think it's good stuff, and I want to share it with you guys. That's awesome.
Sure.
I mean, how many people could you help team me up to? And and that's because you and I go back a few years and all the way back to the Mardi Gras stuff and sending you cakes full of babies and things like that. So it all works if you'll just be a good person, be human. I love your point of always be human. Quit trying to sell all the time. Just be a good guy. Yeah. Be helpful.
I was thinking about the contrast of that, compared to the person that you had all your ACT to-dos, your whoever it was, your A-list telecom person, and how many hours you logged on that, versus saying, hey, you should pay a little more attention to Mardi Gras because it's a project I'm working on, and here's a king cake with a baby in it, but finally I come down to New Orleans, I spend less than 20 hours on the ground, but have a wonderfully delicious time, and I get the best of all the experiences, including a little dip into Cafe Du Monde and all that. I made a tweet from the airport saying something about your life has changed a little bit when you have to wipe the powder off your face and say that's cocaine, it's not a beignet. But that's a really long lead time to something like getting attention of an audience, and then next thing you know, this is still lead possibility, not business. But like you said, I think what I'm thinking, Tom, is that this is a lot more painless way to do it, as long as you still sort of have some business goals in mind at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got to close leads. I mean, and you've got to generate leads. You've got to always be closing leads because you got to keep the cash flow of the company moving. But what I always try to explain to salespeople, especially like when they talk to us about doing our training, and they want to do it as I could use this money to hire you to come in and train my sales team and marketing team to do this, or I could buy leads.
Right.
And I always have to help them understand, okay, that's great, but buying leads doesn't scale and it's not an investment. The value is consumed as soon as you buy the lead because you always got to buy the next one. What I'm talking about doing is training your salespeople to invest in relationships, to invest in the future, because what they learn how to do today is going to pay off for many tomorrows. I mean, we had a client this year. Guy emailed me from a speaking gig I did 2 or 3 years ago. And he still had my business card. He just wasn't ready. But when he was, I had the top of mind preference. He knew he just wanted to do business. It was easy. Boom. And, granted, you got to wait 2 to 3 years for some of that to come through. But I think that's, it's a relationship thing. And, when I talk to people in the book that I interviewed, that was one of the things in the business to business side, especially the case studies. What they said is if I can get the sales guys who really understand the relationship piece of this, we kill it. We do just excellent. If they still are in that sort of to-do list transactional mindset, then it's just it's an uphill battle.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those, it took me a really long time to watch the movie Glengarry Glen Ross. And what I felt like when I finally saw it was, oh, that's selling. And
yeah.
And at the same time, I mean, it's in between those two things, because there's kumbaya sellers, which is a lot of our social friends who are like, I don't know why no one's buying from me. I'm hugging everything I can hug. And then there's the other side, these little demon ninjas in their polyester suits, just like danging the phone all day long and no one's picking up. It's clearly there's a synthesis that has to happen, a propinquity that needs to be absorbed.
Yeah, it's I think it's like you said. I think there's a lot of folks that really don't come from a selling background, especially in this sort of social space. If you look around at most people's backgrounds, they don't really come from a selling background. And yeah, there is a lot of kumbaya, and there's nothing wrong with that. Being a good person and genuinely trying to help people first, without ever expecting anything in return. Just pay it forward, right? But you also, at the same time, when you see an opportunity, you got to go get that opportunity. You've got to, I'm in there's a Facebook group I'm in. It's a private group, and I give away a shit ton of information for free because it's mostly client-side marketers. But I get to hear and see what they're thinking. And boy, oh boy, when somebody puts something out there I can help with, I can't just sit back and go, oh, well, I've given away all this information. Of course they're going to call me. I got to go private message and say, hey, I didn't want to do this in the group, but I can totally help you with that. Yeah. Why don't you give me a call? Give me 15 minutes. Let me talk to you. You got to go, and you can't be like, oh, well, I can't sell. I can't reach out because that would be spammy. It's not spammy. They've said they have a problem.
Right.
You're simply saying, man, you got a problem. I can help you with that. And you already know me and you already like me. So if you want to talk, let's talk. And that's where you move and you start to, get that person into a sales funnel of really then bringing them down the pipeline. But if you don't ever take that first step, then yeah, you're going to hug a whole lot of people, as you go bankrupt.
Exactly. So this is bourbon straight up. This is the propinquitous stuff, Tom Martin. So we can go to theinvisiblesale.com to just look at your gorgeous green weird book, or we can go to Converse Digital to see the whole Tom Martin glory. That's right, Tom?
That's right. You can actually buy the book right at the Invisible Sale too. It should be out first week of October.
Get it. Theinvisiblesale.com. Tom Martin, thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.